from forgotten to fabulous, these vintage finds are about to get a stunning makeover. I'm Katie from Lady Red Crafting, where thrifted meets timeless beauty. Let's get started. I absolutely fell in love with this bingo tissue paper over on Brandy's website, The DIY Struggle. This paper is amazing. I cannot wait to use all of these different bingo cards, and I'm going to show you what I make with them all. But for this video, we're only going to be using one of these small bingo cards for our piece. So I'm using the water method here, where I'm taking a brush of water and I'm just going to paint that around my bingo card. And then I'm just going to lightly tear that paper. I can't say enough about the quality of this tissue paper. I am going to be leaving a link for Brandy's website, The DIY Struggle, down in my description box below if you're interested in this paper. Now, once we have our bingo card ready to go, I'm going to take this little bottle that I found at the local Ben Franklin. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the little hanger from the piece. I am going to save this because I'm going to put that back on here in a little bit. Once I have that removed, I am going to go ahead and paint this with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. Now, I ended up doing 2 coats of this paint all over this bottle. Now, once our paint has dried, I'm going to come in with my Mod Podge and I'm going to add a layer of Mod Podge to one side of this bottle. One of the sides has an imprintation on it, so we're going to keep that the way it is. So this is the smooth side of the bottle. And I'm just adding a nice coat of the Mod Podge, and then I'm laying down that little piece of tissue paper. And then we'll grab our cling wrap. And I'm going to layer a piece of the cling wrap right on top of our bingo card. And then we can just smooth everything out into place to make sure that there are no wrinkles. Now, once that has dried, I'm going to take my Mod Podge and do a sealing coat over the top of our decoupage. Now, once our Mod Podge has completely dried, I'm going to come back in with my Antique Wax by Waverly. And I'm just going to lightly brush this over the whole entire piece. It's really going to bring out those words that were etched into our bottle and give it a really nice antique look. And once I'm satisfied with how much wax I have on our piece, I'm going to go ahead and use a baby wipe and wipe off any excess. This will give a really nice vintage look to our bottle. Now I just go ahead and I let this dry. Once everything has dried, I'm going to reattach that little hanger that we had on it earlier. Now this is what our bottle looks like. I just love how this turns out. Now all that's missing is a little bit of lavender added to our piece. This is so adorable. I cannot wait to display this in my office. Or maybe I need to take it with me to bingo for good luck. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. So this is one of those crafts I've always wanted to try. Making a mosaic tray. I'm starting out with this beautiful wood tray that I got at my local Ben Franklin and a vintage plate that I found at the thrift store. So the first thing I need to do is remove that tag from the back side of that plate. And to remove these tags, I find that it's really easy to use your hot tool. And if you just warm up the tag a little bit, it usually peels right off. Then after I clean my plate, we're going to take this plate and I'm going to place it inside of a plastic Ziploc bag. And this is one of the freezer gallon bags. Next, I am going to wrap this in a towel. Yes, a towel. I am going to break this plate, and I know this may upset some people out there, but I really love this pattern, and I'm really excited to be giving it a new life as a tray in my office. now that we have our mosaic pieces ready to go, I'm going to start arranging them on my wood tray so that I can figure out where I would like each one of these pieces. And once we're satisfied with the placement of our pieces, I'm going to be taking my Titebond Quick and Thick glue, and I'm going to glue all of these pieces into place. And once everything is glued into place, this is what your tray is going to look like. Once your glue has set, I'm going to be using this tile grout tube that I found from Red Devil, and I believe I got this on Amazon or maybe Lowe's. I'm then going to apply my grout in between all of my pieces on this tray. Now, while this may have been less messy for the application of the grout, it was pretty difficult to get it out of the tube. So in the future, will be using grout that I mix myself instead, just to make it a little bit easier on myself. Now, once I had let the grout dry for about 10 minutes, I went ahead and I used a damp cloth here, and I tried to wring it out as best as I could, and I'm just going to wipe any of that excess grout off of my tiles. And once you're satisfied, I went ahead and let this dry overnight. And you can completely stop here. You could seal the grout or just leave it the way it is. But the next day, I decided that I wanted to take this to the next level. So for this next step, this is completely optional. I decided to pour a little bit of resin over the top just to give it a really nice shiny coat and a nice flat hard surface. And if you've never used resin before, a lot of them have two parts, an A and a B, and you mix them 1-to-1 together. So that's what I'm doing here with these solo cups. I'm just mixing up the same amount of A and B together into one cup. Now, this resin I did get on Amazon, so I will put a link for it down in my description box below. But I've also used the resin from the Dollar Tree. It comes in a lot smaller containers, but if you only need a little bit of resin for one project, it's the perfect amount for this piece. Now, once you have your resin evenly spread over the top of your pieces, I do come in with my heat tool, and this heat tool allows me to pop any bubbles that may be there in the resin. And sometimes a bubble might form a half an hour or an hour later after the resin starts to harden up. So I usually check on my piece every half an hour for about 2 hours, and I use my heat tool to remove any of those bubbles. And that just allows for a really nice smooth piece when it is completely dry the next day. And here is what our little tray turns out like. I just love how this turns out. The resin gives it a really nice smooth finish at the top and just completes the whole entire piece. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this piece. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe or like button. Thank you. I love finding these vintage dishes at the thrift store. They are such a fun piece to make over to match your decor. Now, to prep our dish, all I'm going to be doing is flipping this over and placing it onto a paintable surface. I'm going to set that aside for a moment and grab this beautiful napkin that I found a few weeks ago at HomeGoods. I absolutely love this blue and white pattern. I feel like it goes with so much in my home. Now, to prep this napkin, I'm just going to be removing the back 2 layers from the napkin. And to do this, I'm using a piece of painter's tape to help me out. That back second layer was not an easy one to get off, but once it did, it worked out wonderfully. And now that our napkin is prepped, let's go ahead and grab that dish again. I'm just going to set that down, And then taking my napkin, I'm going to layer the top side down onto the bottom of our piece. Once we've layered the napkin down, I'm taking my Mod Podge, and this is the glossy Mod Podge. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint this on top of the dry napkin. So make sure the napkin is laying right where you would like it to be. And then we're going to paint the Mod Podge right over the top of the napkin. Hey friends, I just wanted to take a quick moment to remind you that this video is part of our Everything Vintage playlist. I co-host this every other month with Lisa from Our Gray House. And this month we are so excited to have Monica from Up All Night DIYs joining us. These ladies are incredibly talented and always bring the most beautiful creative inspiration. You are definitely going to love what they're putting together. Please check out the video playlist down in the description box below and show some love to the creators. Thank you! Now, once we have painted this whole napkin down onto our piece, we're going to set this aside and let this dry. Now, about a half an hour later, when this was completely dry, I'm going to come in with my zip sander and I'm going to sand in a downward motion to remove the excess napkin. Now, here is what our piece is starting to look like. I just love how this napkin is turning out on our piece, but I do want it to be brightened up a bit. So I'm taking my Delta Creative metallic white paint here, because I wanted a little bit of shimmer on the outside of our piece. And we're going to paint over the top of the Mod Podge and napkin on the bottom of our piece. This is going to brighten up our napkin, so when you're looking at it through the candy dish, it's going to look nice and bright. And then on the outside, it's going to have a nice shimmer because that paint has a really cool finish to it. And for longevity, I did do a second coat of paint just to make sure everything was nice and well coated. And once our paint has dried, I did use my Rust-Oleum Matte Clear Enamel Sealer, and I did seal my paint in. And now that everything has dried, let's go ahead and flip over this dish for the final reveal. Wow, I just love how this dish turns out. This is such a fun way to upcycle a vintage dish from the thrift store. And this dish is still food friendly since we only decoupaged and painted on the outside of our dish. Just remember to hand wash so you don't ruin your finish. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope these vintage-inspired makeovers sparked a little creativity for you. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you gave it a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And don't forget to check out the Everything Vintage playlist down below for even more inspiration. Until next time, please remember, craft more, stress less.